My guest now is Orhan Amashev, a lawyer. Good evening and welcome to our special edition.
Hello, hi, it's great to be here.
What do you think about these meetings and what are your expectations from the achieved results?
Well, I think that first of all, the OSCE Minsk Group is pretty much defunct. I mean, they have been a complete failure in the course of the last decades, and the Azerbaijani public doesn't trust this organization. They have a clear mandate, but still, when it comes to the way they perceived in Azerbaijan, I believe that they do not command the confidence of the nation. And actually, lots of people are talking about the replacement of OSCE Minsk Group with 2+2 system, which would entail Azerbaijan and Armenia as conflicting sides, and Turkey and Russia. As long as this particular meeting and the results are concerned, yes, I mean, if you look at what happened in Baghdad and Ganja, we can clearly see the signs of a war crime because the object, the territory, heavily populated, densely populated with civilian people, targeted without any military justification because the area was far away from the theater of conflict. And that didn't give Armenia any military advantage, which is a very important point. And it was an internationally protected area. So it's a clear sign of war crime. And some of the things committed by Armenians are clearly the crimes against humanity and the use of cluster munition, the big problem. As you know, there's an international convention adopted in 2010. Azerbaijan and Armenia are not part of this treaty, but still the use of cluster munition against the civilian population is forbidden by international customary law. But it was very clear Armenia is committing war crime. It's very good. I'm very surprised that people from Amnesty International came to Azerbaijan, actually, and because the criminal investigation launched, and we are collecting facts, the important facts which will be used in the further part of the legal process. For that reason, Armenian side, the Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, they have to, of course, investigate. One of the things, they found the fragments of cluster munition, which is a very clear case that Armenians recklessly use cluster munitions against civilians. They are accusing Azerbaijan too, but one of the most important things we have to bear in mind, Baghdad, Ganja, or Tata, those areas, they were not populated by, there were no legal military object to target. Azerbaijan is accused of targeting Khankandi, which is the capital of the former oblast, but Khankandi does have military object. One thing we have to bear in mind when it comes to civilian casualties, people die during the war. It is absolutely inevitable. But the laws of war is clear, they are clearly saying that there must be proportionality and military necessity. Azerbaijan was targeting Khankandi and the military object, and sadly some civilians died as a result of this process. In the case of Armenia, there was no proportionality, there was no military justification, there was absolutely no reason to target Baghdad apart from frightening Azerbaijani population. So I think that Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch and other organizations, they have to be clearer in their approach and stance against in relation to Azerbaijan and Armenian forces in Nagorno-Karabakh. What is very clear, what is the thing which is absolutely evident is that the facts on the ground have changed. There was a reality before this Second Karabakh War, and that reality was not exactly in favor of Azerbaijan because Armenia was physically in charge of that occupied territory, Nagorno-Karabakh and 7 adjacent territories. Now the facts on the ground have changed. Azerbaijani military forces have changed the factual reality. Now 4 out of 7 surrounding districts have been liberated by Azerbaijani military forces from the occupation. So Azerbaijan, I think the United Nations must be grateful to Azerbaijan for actually enforcing 2 out of those 4 resolutions which have not been implemented in the course of last decades. So Azerbaijan is in a very good position currently, and this military and diplomatic success, of course, will define the final status and the settlement of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. And talking about the international legal assessment, if you look at what happened after the Second World War, or if you look at the example of the tribunal in Yugoslavia and Rwanda, all the time, once the conflict is over, but once we know the winner is winner and loser is loser, then of course the whole thing starts. So once we win this war, and the results are very clear, I think that there are two ways we can go. Currently, there's a criminal investigation in the Republic of Azerbaijan, of course, and the facts are being gathered and so on. But there are two ways Azerbaijan could take Armenia to the international criminal system. The one is creating international tribunal, separate tribunal, and the second one, international criminal court. And I think that both of those mechanisms should be tried. First of all, I just want to say something very important about Nikol Pashinyan. I mean, his rhetoric is not very consistent. This is a person who was saying within the same speech that Karabakh is Armenia full stop, and then saying that any settlement which will be offered should be acceptable to Armenia and Azerbaijan and Nagorno-Karabakh. At one point, he's saying that there's no military solution to the problem, and on the second occasion, he's saying that Armenians will fight till the end. I mean, this person's statements and rhetoric are showing that he's neither a good diplomat nor a great statesman, and actually a very shambolic creature on the whole. As long as these particular verification mechanisms are concerned, I think it is very clear from what we have seen so far, Armenia is not going to honor ceasefire regulation requirements. So I would be very, very skeptical about implementation of the ceasefire. We see from what happened that Armenians even are not willing to accept their own corpses, which is absolutely appalling and ludicrous, but they are doing this. And for that reason, I'm not very optimistic about ceasefire. I expect the continuation of the military conflict, and looking forward to hearing more good news from the battlefield. Well, first of all, you talked about the involvement of young soldiers, and this is another war crime which Armenia is committing currently, because there have been some videos, I've seen them, I'm sure you have seen too. We see that young people definitely you see from the physical traits of the person that is younger than 18 or possibly younger than 15 are being used in the military conflict. And this is a war crime. It's child soldiers shouldn't be used in the military conflict. And, you know, there are two different categories. Those under the age of 15 shouldn't be used at all. And those between 15 and 18 could be used, but not in the direct military confrontation. So Armenia is committing war crimes in that direction. Armenia is using the gold reserves of Kalbajar. We heard from the assistant Azerbaijani president, that they have been using gold reserves for that particular brand called Frank Muller.
There is also an ecological crime, if I'm not mistaken, on these territories.
Ecological crimes, because that is not required by the military. There's no military necessity to do that. So Armenia is committing all of these crimes. And one thing which is very clear is that Nikol Pashinyan is always talking about the self-determination of Armenian population of Nagorno-Karabakh. First of all, Armenia's position is not flexible at all. They are, you know, before this conflict, they were saying that it's not just Nagorno-Karabakh should be part of so-called Artsakh, but also the lowland Karabakh. And actually, they were adding to that claim that they have some pretensions. They want some other territories of Azerbaijan, which was absolutely ludicrous. We can't see any flexibility in that sort of position. And also, there's another thing. They talk about self-determination. One thing is very clear. First of all, not everybody in Nagorno-Karabakh is Armenian. Yes, currently they are all Armenians because Azerbaijanis were ethnically cleansed from there, but the proportion was 75-25. This is one thing. And secondly, self-determination should always be in line with the territorial integrity. As Azerbaijani President Hamaliyev said it very clearly, Armenians have decided, they determined themselves, they've used their rights of self-determination by creating Armenian states. And another thing is that Nagorno-Karabakh has never been part of an independent sovereign Armenian state. As we know, there was a Karabakh Khanate before the Russian Empire. Under the Russian Empire, there was no national unit called Armenia-Azerbaijan. Then Soviet Union. Armenians always said that it was under Stalin that Karabakh was transferred from Armenia to Azerbaijan. But actually, the decision was to make sure that Karabakh remains as a part of Azerbaijan, not is being transferred. And one of the Armenian arguments about independence of Nagorno-Karabakh, it's a legal argument, but it's not a proper argument, of course. They're saying that Nagorno-Karabakh decided to leave Azerbaijani Soviet Republic and join Armenia, which is true. There was a decision by the local parliament of Nagorno-Karabakh Oblast, but that decision was not approved by the Supreme Council of the Soviet Union. So in 1991, when Soviet Union collapsed, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia emerged as independent states with their borders, and Nagorno-Karabakh was inside Azerbaijan. So from that point of view, both historically and from the legal point of view, Armenian claim is totally ludicrous and preposterous. OSCE Minsk Group, as we said, is complete failure. They haven't achieved anything tangible. And there's a huge degree of frustration because, as you know, the position of international law has always been very clear. We always talk about four resolutions. There was also the resolution of the General Assembly of the United Nations, other documents adopted by different international organizations, but OSCE Minsk Group co-chairs failed. Out of these three co-chairs, it's very clear that Russia still remains very much committed to the region because Azerbaijan was part of the Soviet Union. Russia is in the region, it's a regional power. But America and France are slightly different. In the course of the last couple of years, it is evident that their power and the clout in the region has decreased quite substantially. In particular, France, I think, doesn't have any moral entitlement to be a co-chair of the Minsk Group because they should be neutral. And what kind of neutrality you can talk about if they have this Armenian lobby in their own country and their political institutions under the influence of that lobby. So we can't expect that level of neutrality because mediator is somebody who doesn't decide anything, but he facilitates the process and they have to be absolutely neutral. For that, I believe in terms of Turkey and Iran, that thing you mentioned, yes, as we see America and France are no longer playing the role which they were bound to play, and we see Turkey is becoming a very pivotal power in the region. And it's quite natural because Turkey was an imperial power before. In South Caucasus was always within the interest of influence of Turkey. All the borders of the current states in the South Caucasus were drawn with a Turkish participation. It's only quite natural that Turkey, Russia must be involved in this process. I'm not entirely sure about Iran, of course. Iran, the relations are improving, and after Azerbaijani military forces have liberated Zangilan, there was a clear statement from the Iranian side that they fully support the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. That is very good. Of course, with Iran, Azerbaijan is bound to have great relations, but in terms of the regulation of the conflict settlement process, I expect Turkey to be far more assertive, both in terms of arguments and in terms of helping the conflicting sides to come to the terms. Because Armenia, I think, by losing Nagorno-Karabakh, will be in a far more advanced state, because Nagorno-Karabakh is some kind of a toxic problem. It's a problem which doesn't allow the region to be fully in a position of advancing itself, and Armenia is dependent on Russia hugely because of this conflict. So I expect by losing Nagorno-Karabakh, Armenian military forces, Armenia will actually get a certain degree of independence, which will benefit the country. Armenian population. Azerbaijani approach is very receptive. Azerbaijan is embracing all ethnic minorities, not just Armenians. And Azerbaijan is more than happy to give cultural autonomy to the people of Armenian origin. The Armenians who belong to Karabakh are more than welcome to stay there, and their cultural rights will be preserved. But of course, no referendum. President made it abundantly clear. Because Azerbaijan was never committed to anything called referendum. Some people are saying that we promised at some point that there would be a referendum, but that's not true. Because Azerbaijani position was very clear. No process leading to the creation of independent state in the territories of Azerbaijan can possibly be contemplated. And for that reason, I think that our position, Azerbaijani position, has been consistent.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Mr. Amashev, for this interesting conversation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.